right now we're in a situation where we have a bunch of different chains, a bunch of different L2s. And what happens is that, every day there is a new L2 coming up, and then there is like a bunch of forks that are happening on this L2 that, the popular protocols are being forked there, so that the ecosystem gonna start up and everything. But there is also a lot of teams working on chain abstraction. So eventually, we believe that the future will be there where the user is not going to know on which chain he is. The liquidity will be unified between all these different chains, and it will flow freely between different L2s. Now the question is how the ecosystem is going to change when that happens. Like, are we going to still see all this forking going on? What is going on when there is a new chain, but you can use everything that's already existing on this new chain? Like, how then the incentive structure gonna change? Like, how the ecosystem gonna look like when that happens?
Cool. Okay. So I think the chain stuff is a lot of it is around access. We saw Base come in and take so much of the TVL and of the mind share because they have this privileged access compared to a lot of other networks that recently launched. Because it's easy on and offboarding through their CFI programs, right? And so I think there are way too many networks at the moment, right? But we will start seeing this sort of specialization around. We'll have some generalized, but a lot of protocols will end up having like an app chain, right? Because very few products and protocols in the space have found a way to monetize and or justify the existence of a token. Yeah, without an app chain, right? So there's going to be some pressure on these teams to like launch that, and we'll keep seeing it. And then from a user perspective, I think chain abstraction is awesome, and account abstraction is awesome, but a lot of the user today, it's someone who's actually trying to like make money from the inefficiency that exists. So once you get to that, like, anyone can just open up a wallet and swap and send and do everything without actually knowing what's happening in the background, I think that's a very different user persona than the people that we have in the industry today. Like if you're someone who's gonna like manually loop borrow on Aave to get a better yield, like you would still seek that. You're not gonna trust the abstraction because for the abstraction to make sense, there's going to be someone who's going to be curating that experience and taking care of it.
Yeah, I sort of disagree with the premise of the question. You said it's like inevitable. I really don't think it is on some level. I think for some use cases, I mean, we're just going to see specialization. We've had this like Cambrian explosion, like in biology, 700 million years ago, there's like life suddenly like went multicellular. There's this like explosion of different like life forms, and then over time, lots of these different like experimental life forms died off, and we sort of settled on mammals with legs and all the rest. But things with like 8 legs just didn't survive. And I think right now we're seeing that explosion of different ideas being tested, and the market will ruthlessly prune away bad designs, and we'll see specialization emerging. So like a chain for that's really like low cost and efficient for building games on top of chain that's better for DeFi, a chain that's better for like social fi or whatever. But like we're going to see specialization, and for some of those things you don't really care where your assets are based. If I'm just doing a swap, as long as I get the assets at the end of it for like a few seconds later, I don't really care what chain it happens on. So maybe that's fine. But if I'm holding assets on chain for prolonged period of time, I really deeply care whether they are, and I don't want them on a chain with a centralized sequencer necessarily, especially one that's unregulated, that I don't trust, that hasn't shown a strong sense of like securing that chain or whatever. So for DeFi, I really think that we'll see a tendency towards the main Ethereum chain becoming a place where people store large sums of money and transacting for lending and borrowing. But for other use cases, we'll probably see that emerging on some of these other types of network which are customized and specialized for those use cases. So yeah, I'm just not sure I believe fully in the thesis of the whole thing.
Yeah, I agree here. And also, technical level, I'm not a dev, but it doesn't seem very easy for me to implement. And we'll see if we get there, but I'm not sure it's even a necessity. The path we seem to be taking now is more of a few L2s kind of emerging and essentially being self-sufficient, in the sense that if you're on board Base, Optimism, or Arbitrum right now, you can pretty much do anything you want. You don't need to chain up. You can borrow. You can find all the other you want. And it's especially something you see on Base, where they have this vision of kind of bringing everything on the chain. Now you have the universal asset, they call them representation of assets on other chain. You have USOL, USay, U whatever, CBB, PC, and so on. So essentially, you can trade whatever flavor of the month token you want on Base right now. And I think that's more where we're going. The other thing for me that is more important than actually the effective chain abstraction, I would say, in the sense of making the experience more seamless, is the growth of a product like Jumper, the bridge chain aggregator, because it's actually enabling anyone to, really in 2 clicks, without worrying about 25 bridges, go from one chain to another at very efficient cost. So that's more the way I see it going. Tools to make the cross-chain experience increasingly more seamless and less painful than it used to be. And for anyone who farmed on layer 2 early on, you know what I'm talking about. It used to be, there is a before Jumper and an after Jumper, essentially, in that regard. And not just for the, why do we have so many L2s and the app-specific layer 2? And I agree with you even. I think there is like a revenue chasing trends that are swooping by the big protocols and teams. And we were talking earlier about the stablecoin revenue chasing trend, where we saw Curve launch a stablecoin. Okay, that's now $60 million stablecoin, and Curve Dex is losing more and more market share. The Curve token is underperforming very severely, so I'm not sure it worked very well for them. The Avi now launched a stablecoin Go, had massive problem from the get-go. The model is still utterly not balanced and essentially sustained purely by massive cash injection. And even with that, it grew to 200 something million market cap, which is literally nothing for Avi. We're talking 20 billion product mark, and it's not a profitable revenue so far. So I think it's a bit the same with those app chains and tons of L2 we're seeing. It's like, well, you need to justify the existence of the token. You need to bring some revenue, fine. So they try those things, but we'll see how it goes. But I think a lot of them are not going to be relevant. Even something like a Unichain that was just announced recently, I'm still not convinced it's something needed. To be honest, maybe time will prove me wrong. I don't know, but yeah.
How's Frax chain doing? Because they launched a chain and I haven't heard anything
150 million CVR, but mostly essentially, through pure incentivization. They have a few protocols there, but Frax is pretty much, if you want to know if something is trendy in the trend chasers, you look at what Frax is doing.